Hello, I'm interviewing the Michael Walton about the making of his forthcoming album, The Journey Home. So the first track on the album is called Angel and Child. It seems like you start at the very, 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 very beginning where the spark of life meets his guardian angel.
It's the child in its innocence able to connect with the guardian angel. Really, the guardian angel is saying to the child, you can see me now, and when you grow up, you won't be able to see me, but I'll be here with you all the way through your life. I wanted to really start the album with a very positive celebration of the innocence, really, that's at the heart of the track, and the beauty that's there. There's a lot of the album that's quite dark, and quite searching, really. But I thought it was really important to have that beautiful light and that dialogue of love there.
So the journey home begins.
It begins in a very beautiful, and poignant way.
And the second track's called Mystery of Light.
Okay, so Mystery of the Light is about the adult looking at their relationship with spirituality as opposed to the earlier track, which is the child. And Carl Jung's voice is on there as a mature man, speaking about his reflection on God and light. And also I think you can substitute the word light for life.
So the first track's the beginning of life, and the second track is an adult inquiry into life.
Absolutely.
With a title like Mystery of the Light, I'm guessing the atmosphere of the track is quite, mysterious?
Yes, it's a reflective, haunting piece, and I think you can hear the little rays of light throughout it.
So tell me about Forget-Me-Nots.
Forget-Me-Nots was how I was really for much of my 20s. It's a song that I wrote at a time when I had a lot of unresolved issues, and it's a song that looks back at my relationships, some of which I was happy to have as part of me, and some of which really gave me a feeling of angst and anger and to some extent bitterness. So the song is a wide spectrum of emotions. It was difficult to record because of that. We move from one lyric to the next, and it's so different and contrasting in emotion.
The way that you talk about the track, I can almost feel turmoil already.
Track 4 is When We Run Fast. This is about the collision between the child's world and the adult's world. And how it can create a real crisis, I think, as a child that can reverberate for a very long time.
So, When We Ran Fast is a tension between the adult world and the child world.
There were things around me at the time that caused me a great deal of pain. There was the innocence of the child and living in a beautiful environment in Wales where we had a lot of freedom and safety, a feeling of safety in that freedom, and yet there were moments that were very, very troubling and kind of clashed with our innocent world. So, and I think a lot of children find occasions like that, when there's the world of the adult that can seem at great odds, with this innocence that's naturally, in a child's life.
So this track is about the innocence of a child meeting the harshness of an adult world and the pain that can come from there.
It's about that clash, that collision between, those two kind of worlds, the adult world, which can seem very cruel and dark, really, and then the freedom and joy of, as you say, collecting frogs in streams and running through hills. I think I really liked the way that the guitar kind of brings out that earthy, rustic, masculine force, and about this collision. Suddenly we're in a very kind of physical world, whereas we were in the spiritual world earlier. And the guitar was just brilliant in eliciting that atmosphere.
So tell me about Photographs from Mars.
Well, to be honest, I went off the rails. I did my adolescence.
How old were you then?
And I was in my 20s.
Right.
And,
so slightly late adolescence.
Slightly late, yes. And but I'd moved to the big city. I'd moved to London,
Right.
And also, the song has a lot of humour in it. It's very metaphorical. Going off the rails, finding yourself on another planet and thinking, what am I doing here? And humour is very important to me. It's a big part of my life, and it definitely belongs in the album because, it's a big part of my life and a part of my journey.
So with this track, I particularly get the humour part, remembering being in your grandmother's lounge with her recording her part and the way the whole family were in absolute stitches when you came back out of the back room in your silver spaceman outfit. But the going off the rails part, is that also could I feel that in the track?
I think so, yeah. It's a very upbeat track, and I intend to choose sounds on it that are that give that kind of feeling that you're zooming off, to another place. And you could say that I'd lost the plot, so to speak, and I definitely wasn't grounded for a part of my life. And my grandmother was, at home saying, what the hell's going on with you? Come back, to the village and get back on the straight and narrow path and I'll make you a nice cup of tea.
You progress into the next track with a different feeling altogether.
Absolutely. We've gone from the humour going off the rails and maybe avoiding something with all the, should we say, partying, and that kind of escapism. And the track which follows it, Longing and Belonging, is really the point leading up to the breakdown. And I think you can hear the fragility there in the exchange between the piano and the violin. I think the violin really was the perfect instrument to capture that sense of fragility, and Xenia Porteous, who was the violinist on the track, I think did a really perfect job of it, and there's a separation at the end between the piano and the violin, which really depicts the fragmentation. The Terminator is a track that in some ways I'm going to find very difficult to record, and you're right at the heart of the breakdown then. And I really wanted to depict the internal world, my internal world at the time, with the voices that you hear on it. It's a real stark, unabashed depiction of the breakdown itself. It's extremely intense. It's very difficult to describe the feeling of absolute terror and torment, living constantly in a state of being absolutely petrified and just desperately wanting that to stop. It's very difficult, and getting that across, because in some ways it's beyond description, that level of pain, really. You can hear a lot of voices there. Really, it's a culmination of those traumas that I'd experienced and which fed into the breakdown, really, which helped to create it. So the cancer experience is there, things from the childhood are there. Like, I hate you, what do I do to prove to you that I hate you? Or I'm going to stab you, I'm going to smash your head up against the wall. Those kinds of things that were said to me, we're going to remove the roof of your mouth. And it's like they all come in a collision. So you hear them like,
right.
It's like recorded in such a way that there's fireworks going off.
Right.
The track that comes after the Terminator is called Space and Snow, and this is a very different feel. I wanted a track that would portray the stirring of a new sense of myself emerging. And when I thought of symbolic words for that experience, I thought Space and Snow, because there's a new space emerging with a breakdown. The old self kind of gives way, and there's a capacity for something new to arise. And snow really for me is the winter, giving rise to something new. The spring is on its way, and the death of one thing, the beginning of something else.
It sounds like from the chaos and the death is the rebirth and the new life.
It was recorded on piano and keyboards, and there's a lot of stillness in it actually, because it did feel very still in some ways after the breakdown, but there was something new that was being born, and I just wanted a very slow, quiet piece that would give that feeling of stirring of a new life force coming into being. Music of the Wave is really one of my favourite pieces on the album because I just love the saxophone. And Fionn Wyn Davies did a superb job on the saxophone. I love the ocean and the wave, and that song, the music, with the way that the saxophone just takes off, takes me. I feel like I'm rising on a wave with it as well. And really, that's one thing that emerged a few years after the breakdown, is that there was a new sense of life, a new appreciation of it. I was really able to be excited by the new life force, that was a few years after the breakdown, really. It's kind of an unfolding process, but it took a couple of years after the breakdown to really start to feel that.
And what I'm getting from you is almost like a message to people that are going through this, I guess, death and rebirth or awakening or clearing. Hang in there. It's a message of life. Where does life take you next?
Absolutely, you're right about that. One thing that I have learned from that experience is not to judge things just by their outward experiences, really. That on the face of it, something really awful is happening, but really there is a bigger picture, and maybe we just can't see the purpose of it at the time that it's happening. So the breakdown gave way to a new experience of life and a new appreciation of it, a feeling of being more content.
After Music of the Wave, you're home again.
I really liked, the idea of going back home, visiting home again, with my new sense of myself, really, and experiencing my environment there from this newly formed sense of my own being. So yeah, the song was written because when I was out in Pontardawe in the Butcher's Arms for a drink with my father and Marilyn and Gaffer, suddenly these people from my childhood walked in, and they hardly ever go there. That's the most really interesting thing. And we ended up having the most brilliant night. And I remember halfway through that night thinking, this is a song. After Home Again, there's a track on the album which is a simple piano solo. That's called The Journey, just depicting that part of the journey where you're just feeling that you're at your centre, there's no extremes, and a nice piano piece, really, that you can just put your feet up to and relax and thinking you're on the right path, you know.
What a relief to have a bit of space on the album in your life. It sounds like to just be and everything's fine.
Exactly, yes. Uncomplicated, simple, pretty, you know, piano piece.
So Fallen Angel comes next.
Fallen Angel was a fascinating piece to record. I can remember the moment that I wrote it, even though it's 17, 18 years ago. And I just felt compelled to go to the piano, and I felt a song emerging. It came through in about 15 minutes. And it's a celebration of looking back at your life and finding that really in the darkest of moments you have a feeling that you were being held. And thinking back to the earlier part of the album where the guardian angel is singing to the child, it's really saying as an adult, you know, I'm sure that I was held somehow through those times. The Fallen Angel, that title really was the fallen angel in me, you know, rising again, and feeling that there was a bigger picture to it all and appreciating life. Susan Black's voice on there really is phenomenal.
The next track for me feels like a huge contrast from a very high-pitched and gentle but powerful feminine into a grounded, masculine Welsh male voice choir.
I wanted a part in the album where the male voice choir really had their presence fully, you know, felt, because they were a big part of my beginnings in music, and there's a very strong, powerful energy that they have, and they elicit a sense of community, really. So that track is called Earth and Sky, and it's bridging, you know, the world between, you know, the earthiness of the communities with the forces above.
Before I ask you about the final track, Via Vito, I wonder about the voices in your head from the different religions. I know you've been around a lot of spiritual organisations and had a lot of influences in your life.
I'm the London ambassador for the international organisation, the Peace Mala, and at the heart of the Peace Mala is the intention to foster dialogue and cohesion, and to give a voice that really we understand the world's religions to be primarily about living in harmony and living in a spirit of love and connection with each other.
So we started with the meeting of the guardian angel and the spirit of the child. How do we end the album?
It ends in a symphony of celebration, you know, having survived all that. I think celebration definitely is in order. And really, I wanted a track on the album that pulls in a lot of people's experiences, because, you know, it's not just myself that had experienced very, very difficult times. Most of us do in one form or another. And the album is really about all of us and living together and how we can make this a journey that's more pleasant for all of us. So on Via Vitae, we've got different people from diverse backgrounds giving a sentence or two on their peak experiences, profound moments of their life. And this is set to music, and where it all kind of comes together and we celebrate the unity amongst the diversity.
Wow. It feels to me that you've shared your journey and you've shared the emotions of it through the different tracks in the album, and people have been able to relate to your journey, and I hope it would bring hope to people that are going through their own death and rebirth and whatever their journeys are. And now it includes the journeys of other people. So it's very, very personal, and you're sharing it and making it very, very universal.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's what I want it to be. And it's important, really, that I think we're all able to find ourselves, you know, and our place in the music or the art that we experience in life. Via Vitae is an upbeat, celebratory track. It's quite euphoric, and it celebrates our experiences here together. The saxophone is back on there, and I'm there with the piano, and there's lots of different elements thrown in. I tend to think of it as like fireworks of sound, you know, bright colours shooting off everywhere in sound and voice, and it's a real deep kind of celebration of the journey and the wonderful elements that are in life, you know, a sense of appreciation, gratitude, and really wonder at the being in awe of these vast experiences that we share with each other.
I'm in awe of your life and what you've been through, and the way you're able to not just talk about it but share it emotionally, and pass on so many messages to so many people. Thank you so much for sharing such depth of emotion, as well as the story of your journey home. I cannot wait to be sharing the album with everyone.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation and talking with you about the making of this album. It's a fantastic experience for me, so thank you.